So essentially, La Musica is the introducing character. She's essentially the narrator, and she comes in basically just to start off the whole show.
The first opera that we perform in the show is Monteverdi's Orfeo, and our evening started with actually the prologue, and this was just 7 years after the first opera.
She's here introducing herself, coming as the goddess of music, addressing the audience as the illustrious heroes, noble descendants of kings.
So it was a kind of a small world, Italy in the early 17th century, where these courts, there were noble people sponsoring opera.
And then she talks a bit about who she is herself. She's like, hey, I'm La Musica. With her instrument, she inspires people. And then she goes on to say, well, this is now inspires me to tell you about Orpheus and the story of who Orpheus is. And he basically, with his singing himself, he called wild beasts to him, and he subjugated Hades as well.
Within the scope of Baroque music, Orpheus was a major figure of inspiration for musicians and composers at the time. And when I was talking with Dr. Calcagno about certain projects that maybe we could overlap and collaborate on, Orpheus was an obvious choice.
This course is called Baroque Opera from Monteverdi to Gluck, and is based on the myth of Orpheus, because Monteverdi wrote an opera on the myth in 1607, and Gluck did in 1762. So it's 150 years more, which we can go discuss with the students all the operas in between them that were based on the myth of Orpheus.
His story is a testament to the power of music. And that's what we're doing. And that's everything that we do in this course. It really talks about the combination of text and music and how that each art form enhances the other to create an affect in the listener, even in the 21st century. Eurydice is singing how much she loves Orfeo. This is before they get married in that particular version of the opera. But it's in a minor key, so that gives you foreshadowing of what's to come. There was rhythm inherent in the text before the music even came to be a part of it.
It's also different in Italian, like where you accent certain words. So they went over it with me of like, oh, you have to put emphasis on this part and not this part.
We had this 1 week where Professor Mauro came to talk about Italian prosody, and that's the first time I thought about the poetic structure of these Italian, like usually I think of them as just like lyrics, but then at that point I was like, oh yeah, these are poems.
Practicing prosody with the students, we focused on the stress on particular syllables in the line of poetry. Italian poetry works like English poetry, like in Shakespeare, the iambic pentameter, for example. We are familiar with that. There are a particular arrangement of lines, a way that these stress patterns work. And this seems very technical things, but in reality, when you perform, you embody the lines of poetry.
Understanding the text really helped me make better music. Eurydice just died, and he was very, very upset about it. And since Orfeo's main character trait with his superpower is basically his lyre and his music making, and so a big part of that lyric was hey, bring your music and bring yourself down into the underworld and come find me where I am suffering and crying in this underworld.
Caronte is, his part in the story of Orfeo is, if you will, a guardian between the land of the living and the land of the dead. He is the one who ferries people from the land of the living across the river Styx into the underworld, into Hades' dominion. And so what he's singing at that time is, how dare you come here alive, thinking you can cross. Nobody does that, and he says that. No mortal has done that before. Who do you think you are?
Orpheus was a musician. So this a musician who was a good also rhetorician. And today, our students have to be good rhetoricians. They have to explain, they have to move, they have to affect their listeners in any context, in law, in economics, in anything that they do.
We, in the opera, had to carry a bunch of the storytelling just by us having our moments and singing about something and putting gestures to it.
I could situate my song or in a bigger context without doing too much empty imagination.
There's a pantheon of experiences that go around that. That's what opera is about. That is what we're talking about. It's talking about all of the range of human emotion. And when we're telling that story now in 2023 as ourselves, how we bring ourselves into that story is what makes it relevant.